Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Scrap Time Podcast, Season 2, Episode 7. We got that one, out the gate right there. No confusion this time. But yeah, we have a lot to talk about. A lot of crazy things happen in the CDL. We're flying out to the major. This is the last episode before the big major one to start off the season. I'm excited. We're joined here by, Ben Nissim, the co-host, the GOAT himself. And, Ben, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Unfortunately, I'm not going to Boston. We decided with the flank that that's not going to happen for this event, but I think for major 2, we're going to go. But I'm excited for this major in general. I think after this weekend, and we've talked a lot about like top 4 teams, your team, and we'll get to it. Toronto, OpTic, New York. I think Miami's very competitive. We've seen a couple of other teams have a really good weekend, the teams that we thought were not as good. So I feel like there are potentially upsets awaiting in this major. There are potentially some curveballs, and we might see some teams make top 6, top 4 that we didn't predict, and a couple of teams we thought were good. Maybe we'll get dead last. So I think I don't know if you're excited to go back to the same venue, but I think that venue in Boston, the MGM Music Hall, is a really good venue. And the energy will be good. It won't be -20 this time around. I think the crowd will make for a really good atmosphere.
Oh, dude, I'm excited. I've said this so many times. Boston's venue is incredible.
Yeah.
The area around the venue is nice. Really good food. Like everything else is around there was pretty nice. The weather was really bad last time, so we didn't even get to do much, and we still had a good time. So I'm excited to just be there with a little bit of better weather, experience the city more. Boston's one of my favorite cities in the U.S. that I've been to. I really enjoy it every time I'm there. So yeah, I'm excited. The atmosphere is going to be awesome. Boston usually does a really good job in general right now with all CDL stuff when it comes to challengers and everything else. So I expect a really, really good and fun event. So I'm stoked.
Yeah, on a couple notes on that point, last year there's this like polar vortex like situation was happening. So it was unusually it was so cold last year that they legit told people, please do not show up to the venue early.
Yeah,
you will be stuck outside, and if you get it's just a problem for us from reliability if someone gets God forbid, get frostbite, because it was negative. It was legitimately -10, 15 with 20-mile-an-hour winds. And I agree with you. The only problem I have with Boston as a city is on Sundays, everything closes early. So after you guys won last year, we were like, oh, where were we gonna go? And the only place that was open to drink was the casino.
Yeah,
so
that doesn't bother me because I don't go out after. I'm vibing. I go straight to the hotel and I'm chilling.
But did you go? You didn't go out with us last year?
No.
Went to the casino?
No.
You didn't go for 5 seconds?
Definitely not the casino. Definitely not the casino. The only casino you'll catch me at is either the Hippodrome in London or in Vegas. I'm not going to a casino in Boston.
The casino was nice though.
It probably was, but it's just not.
Yeah,
that's just not my vibe for the most part.
Sam, I'm not a big casino person either, but we were we want to drink on Sunday, and Boston wasn't doing a party. But I will say, listen, to the challengers point last year, the one criticism I had of the event last year, MGM Music Hall, great venue, super new. I think the PPA area is actually not too bad, even though they're trying to kind of right size it in their dressing room. It's definitely better than say New York and Vanguard. But the problem is there's no room for challengers. They did it last year at a hospitality area at Fenway Park, super old school ballpark. Fuck the Red Sox, but it's a nice stadium they play in. The problem is they use that facility during the summer and the spring when the team's playing baseball, and not in -20 weather. So there's no heating in the area.
Yeah.
So this year they've moved it across the street to House of Blues, which was a W decision. But still pretty easy to get to from the venue, and shouldn't be, people shouldn't be attaching hand warmers to the back of their hands or some BS like they're doing last year. So
that is crazy.
And I actually think the Challengers event is super important because we'll get to it. I think 4 to 5 teams are potentially making changes after this one. So if you play good at the Major 1 Challengers event, you might find yourself on a CDL team for the rest of the season.
True.
But anyway, let's get into it. We're going to try and talk about all 12 teams, but to be honest, some of them we're going to skip. I say this every episode, but it is what it is. And as always, we start with your team, Chris. You guys had a pretty interesting weekend, 2-0. So you guys finished off the split 7-0, which I'm sure you're proud of. But it wasn't without some twists and turns this weekend. We'll get to the Texas series sort of in a bit. But first, I want to start off with the 3-2 versus Carolina. You guys got off to a really good part on that series. And then map 3 and 4, it seemed like Prime Clayster, when you team with him, started to really come alive. Do you think in that map 3, Karachi control, and on the map 4 subbase, when you guys lost those 2 maps, is that a case of Carolina playing really well? Or do you think your team is getting caught spraying? Do you think you guys are making a number of mistakes? Do you think it was kind of both?
I mean, to be honest, I think Clay. I mean, the specific play when Clay jumped off the AC on offense and like hopped into the point and got like a crazy like 2 or 3 piece. Like, you know, he like won a huge fight on a BZ that he probably, like, again, I think a BZ had a sub, he had an AR, and he's got like a crazy fight win. You know, that was like really clutch, and then he turned and killed Cell. He just made a really good play, and when someone makes a really good play on a round like that, you're gonna win it, right? Like, so he won that round for them by doing a play like that, and that's just gonna happen. So it's hard to like be really critical about something like that, just because at the end of the day, I know people were giving like, you know, Carolina a lot of shit, which I understand why, but there's only what 48 players in the league or whatever. Like,
Yeah,
like
48.
so your worst, quote unquote, worst team that people were saying, and they did make a roster change before that. Do I think T Felony? I think Fellow helps them a lot, but we'll get to that in a second. They're still going to be really good, right? Like, we're talking about the elites of the elites at the end of the day. And when Clayster's playing well, like, he can make plays like that. So he made a really good play there. We did make some mistakes though in other rounds that I wasn't happy with, and the team wasn't happy with, and you know, we're better than that. So we learned from it, but sometimes too, like, there's going to be rounds where if someone makes a really game-changing play, you're going to lose a round, and if you find yourself there, then you make a mistake in the next round, you can lose. So it was a little bit of both. I think, you know, Clay had some big moments, and I think we made some mistakes, and that's how it goes sometimes.
Yeah, that was the assessment when I talked to MC.
Yeah.
Over the weekend. That was his assessment too. Like, he wanted to tip what Carolina plays, but there was obviously some things you guys could have done better. But I think the one thing you guys did, you showed some resilience. Even when Carolina had that momentum, you guys pulled in that last map, and you guys have been really good in search this year, and you were able to really control that Skid Row SND. I think that's one of your better maps in the pool. And I think people want us to talk, obviously, spend a little bit of time. Probably the second series a little bit more interesting.
Of course.
You know, obviously you guys have had kind of a rough history against OpTic in recent memory. Over the last couple of teams. They've really had your number. That's been one of your more difficult matchups. And it seems they always turn out, but you guys had a really nice kind of 3-0. And I think you guys really did a good job, I think, in map 1, kind of really battling after they got off to a really hot start in that map. And we're going to take a look at a clip, and I think it's sort of the turning point in the map. And we'll kind of talk a little bit about Invasion Hardpoint. You guys look really good in the Invasion SND. I was telling Sam this, and he kind of agreed. Like, bro, watching you guys play defense and search, your team play defense and search, you guys just don't scam. You guys don't mistakes. You don't give any openings. You guys bomb deny when you can bomb deny. If you can't, you back up and you play retakes. And you guys, when you get bloods on defense, you guys just don't scam those rounds.
Yeah, just a lot of teamwork and communication goes into it, you know, a lot of practice.
Yeah.
They've been working hard with that, so it's nice to see it obviously paying off, but you just got to keep, you know, trying to improve. I'll pull up the play right now, though, here.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you specifically, you guys have won, you've gotten first blood in 25 of 40 rounds in defense. You've only scammed 2 of those rounds. You've won 92% of your defenses when you get a first blood, which league average right now is 78%. But as you know, like, the number will fluctuate, but 92 is still fucking crazy.
No, yeah, it's really good. Yeah, that's a very, very good stat to have.
So
hold up, let me just like center this.
Yeah, let me explain this clip. So we're gonna take a look at a clip right now. This is the last P3 to P4, and it kind of set the stage. OpTic got off to a really good start in this map. Go really good P1, really fantastic P2. Kind of trade a couple of hills after that. You guys got a really nice palace break. We're not going to see on that first rotation. So you guys did a split on the hill. P1, they got most of the time. You guys split P2. So you guys then had a really good hold on P3 to get back within like sort of a tie game situation. But more importantly, where I think this map swung is you guys see you're on 163 right here. If you get the rest of this P3 time, you could theoretically win off of P4. So it doesn't end up being a situation where you get P4, but they hold P5 for the W. Watch what happens in this turning point of the map. And I want you to speak towards, you know, I think what needs to happen on Invasion. You really just cannot scam that P3, P4 rotation, or you just get kind of blended.
So you're saying they scammed it, or what are you like?
So I'll explain what I think, and I want to kind of set you up. So hit pause right here. So obviously OpTic at this point kind of chalks it. And this team fight that comes down is really big here, right? You guys are fully rotated. You guys have set up for the most part for this P4. You know that they're not, theoretically, maybe one might hit old. But OpTic's got to try and get a number of kills here so they can try and at least make this P4 mixy. And I just think the finesse from a BZ and DVD, a really good place from Simp here. I think you guys able to getting them like 4 dead and effectively push out. You guys are able to get on the precipice here, and then you're going to see that actually splits come in. And I think your team does a good job of recognizing that, and ultimately get palace spawns, get this P4, and then went off of P5.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know if you were like criticizing OpTic here. I was gonna say, I mean, right now, like we are in the driver's seat just because we're ahead. Like we're controlling the pace of the hard point right now. Like we're ahead. Like they're sprinting into us. We're not sprinting into them. So like again, Shotzi's sprinting into BZ's pre-aim. This is a very hard win for Shotzi. Like this is not like this is what happens when like you fall behind in hardpoint. And we talk about this all the time, like controlling the pace and staying ahead and rotating and making sure like you make your kills useful. Like there's so much things to talk about. But like yeah, like OpTic right now is like in a really, really tough position. Like if this was flipped right now and I'm watching this as a coach of FaZe, I'm just like, damn, bro, like this is gonna be hard. Like this is a hard break. Can you break it? Of course, you win fights. I mean, the first P3, if I remember correctly, OpTic was in the same exact scenario, rotating the P3, not the P4, and they broke us cleanly. Yeah. And like that was really big. They won huge gunfights. That like again, if that I mean honestly, if they don't do that, we could have won this game by a lot, right? So like OpTic had like a really good moment there too. But yeah, here, I mean, this is just tough. They're sprinting into us. They lose their fights. It's a really hard rotation. And then they had like the split spawns. You can see that obviously, like this is readable by any pro team that number 5 switches to read the split spawn. And like from there, it's like a big moment of the game, 100%. Like that just happens, bro. I mean, on Invasion too, like, the P3, P4 area is really important. There's like Invasion's a very tough map because of the sole fact of like, you're watching this now, like we're ready for this guy to do that just because he was called out and everything. But yeah, Invasion is just a tough map when you fall behind. And if you fall behind on Invasion, or even if you don't fall behind on Invasion, you just lose a few kills. Like things can snowball really quickly, especially if you have your teamwork's not perfect. So it's definitely tough.
Well, you'll see. Like you might say, well, shouldn't Ken just hold Palace here? And it's like, no. Well, you guys win off of this time.
If he holds Palace, their team loses. Like if
Kenny
doesn't move, his team loses. Well,
and you see you guys flip out because And this is why on this map, and I know that the hills have changed, so we really are only going to talk about, I think, this P3, P4, P5 blender in this fashion for probably like one more show.
Yeah, that's going to change.
This map has changed a lot.
Soon. Yeah,
but this is how people lose this map. If you do not play your P3 correctly, you get put in a P4 blender, maybe get flipped, and you give them 3 straight hills. That is how and we'll talk about OpTic versus Miami. That's how they lost against Miami. They went up 90, and then they basically about 200 straight points because they scammed these 3 hills. So
it's just when you're playing good teams, dude, it's just crazy because like we control this side of the game, and they OpTic had like we like that first Palace hill, OpTic got clean broke by us, which obviously should never happen. But at the same time, like that first B3, like we got clean broke by them, and that should never happen. So like when you have really good teams, dude, and you watch these guys play, like the level of teamwork and consistency that obviously makes you more consistent is always gonna show when it can. But like when you have 2 really good teams going against each other, like both teams are going to have their moments of scamming. Both teams are going to have their moments of teams making really big plays and really big wins. Even the Shotzi play right here is actually kind of clutch because if he didn't even do this, it would be even harder for them to win. But still, like so many big moments that like both teams have. So yeah, it's a fun watch if you're a Call of Duty super nerd when you get to watch all this stuff and like really break it down. But yeah,
yep. So I think in general, you guys had a great weekend. 7-0. You guys have #1 seed. You're going to play LAG in winners round 1, and then you'll play either Miami or OpTic if you win that series. So I assume you're feeling really confident going into the weekend with where your squad's at. Is there anything you could have done different over the last like 2.5 months to get prepared for this? Do you feel like you guys have just put in the right amount of work, and now it's just being the best team on the weekend?
Yeah, I mean, I'm confident. I'm confident, and from a coaching standpoint, I guess proud would be the right word, but like at the same time, like it's also just an expectation of like the culture we've built throughout the years of just like how prepared they should be. Like they've been working hard. They all play the game a lot, like they have their reps in all the maps, and like, there's a lot of extra work that goes on behind the scenes that no one really gets to see individually and also as a team. That's like more than just scrims. And, from that perspective, I couldn't ask for any more. Like, of course, we have to go out there and execute and, like, make sure that we're still staying on top of our game and getting better and better. There's still things that we need to work on, and we know that. So we're going to keep trying to get, better by watching VODs, and we still have another day of scrims on Wednesday. So I'm definitely happy with everything so far. We're definitely prepared, and just got to keep trying to execute and get better.
Well, let's move on. Let's talk about the flip side, because I think OpTic weekend, people probably want us to talk about OpTic. Let's get into it. Obviously you guys 3-0'd them. They also lost 0-3 to Miami. And I want you to pull up the first clip I've listed. It's another Invasion clip. And I think this speaks towards my concern with OpTic right now. They were already kind of in a difficult position compared to other top teams because they made 2 changes. They brought in 2 new players. You guys brought in 1. Toronto brought in 1. New York brought in one, and those were like easy plug and play ads, right? Think about what Envoy is doing for their team compared to what Charlie's doing. Like it's very similar. What Draza does with your team, even though there's a role shift there, like I think it's still very natural with their team. New York with Dante, again, also like I thought the hardest thing would be S&D, but they obviously put in work to figure that out. For OpTic, with the 2 changes and a lot of role swaps, especially for Shotzi, I just feel like sometimes they're not all on the same page. And this was the big turning point in this first map against Miami. You see OpTic, 60-point lead, they're up a hill. Journey's going really big in this hill and kind of gets him back in it. But Chris, I want you to watch this and let me know if you like the plays that OpTic makes off the spawn here on the rotation. I think this is where they really lost momentum because they didn't really play together here.
I mean, listen, I'm not critiquing OpTic that much.
Okay, fair enough.
To be honest,
you want me to do it?
I mean, you can say whatever the fuck you want to say, but I'm not going that crazy. This is not like we have a major in a couple of days.
Yeah, that's fine. Listen, I if you want to run back the clip, I think this is you got it again with the P4 setup. When people get on the head glitches, when you have to run the preams, it's very tough. And I watched this playback, and I was very surprised that if number 4 is the first one off of spawn, like hitting old, like maybe. But the fact that you're kind of splitting 2 and 2 here, and you kind of gamble that you're going to win that old time, and then the guys that knew get slammed, you start getting put in this blender, and we were to play this map out, we're not going to. You're going to see they can commit to a lot of 2-2 plays, especially at the end of P5. They kind of hedge trying to hit in P5 and P1, and they put themselves in a position where they get blended by Miami for 3 or 4 straight hills. And I think for me and OpTic, this is sort of their biggest issue right now. I think at times they don't look cohesive as a unit. Yes, they have great players. They have great slayers. They can make plays. They can win 3 pieces they shouldn't win. But this is a game, and I think Parasite's talked a lot about it. This is a game of scams. And if you're not doing shit together as a team, you're going to be put in a lot of non-plus situations. And I think OpTic right now lack a lot of discipline that good teams have.
Yeah. I mean, I see what you mean. Right? But at the same time, like I also think a lot of people, I mean, look, there's always a consistency to it, especially coming from my position. Like, I've had plenty of moments where I've talked to my players about, trying to be better and more consistent, but it's also just not as easy to fucking just break a P4 like that. Like, you can use all the teamwork in the world. Like, what the fuck do you think Heretics is doing? They're getting using teamwork too. Like, it's not like.
Let's look at the next play.
Right,
let's look at the next play, which is map 2. Because I agree with you. P4 not easy. It'll break.
Well, like that's again, like I know your job and a lot of people's job is to be super critical, and of course you can. And I'm the most critical to my own team too. But there is also the point where I feel like people talk about how not saying you just did that, but I'm just saying in general. Like I feel like a lot of people when I see on social media, I guess, but it's not just about OpTic, but in general. There's like, oh, if they just use teamwork, they'd break that in a heartbeat. Like it's not like Heretics has also got 3 people looking at lanes too. It's like it's a lot easy. It's not. Yeah, exactly. People act like it's just like, just do it and you're good. It's like it's a lot harder than it seems sometimes, especially on a map like Invasion. But
you just want to be putting yourself in a position. I think. Look, in this game, and again, Invasion is going to change a lot. Especially a hard point in the game, you probably agree. You need to be controlling the map. You need to be cutting lanes. You need to be playing ahead. You need to be trying to be the one not having to break, because as you see, the break percentages this year are not very high on a lot of maps. You just can't make the plays you made last year with red dots, with sort of how this game plays and how the maps are designed. And if you're just like trying to just play that style, it's going to be very inconsistent. But I think this is a controllable situation for OpTic here. So this is a big round. I don't know. This is the Ninja Diffuse for Vickle. You see that OpTic's got good old P1 control here. They kind of plant for, I think, a wallbang spot, because Shotzi plants for street. So I think either this is sort of played for a late street pinch. I think they also like kind of bomb check it by wallbanging, but they don't get a lot of info, and Vickle just kind of insta hops this, and you see what happens. They get for ninja on here.
Yeah, I mean, that fight on metals right there, number 5, like kind of secures that too, because if Pred's able to check that, obviously then we're going to be tank or obviously up the street too. But I mean, yeah, that was just a really hard plant with no map control, and we've seen that exact play happen to other teams in OpTic too already. Like that, like when you peeking out of that door is just tough, right? To like defend that bomb. So it's like, they didn't have the most map control right there too. Like as soon as that bomb gets planted, listen, I'm not going to go super again in detail, because it's just I just can't. But at the end of the day, like once that bomb was planted, that wasn't OpTic's round to win. But still, like it wasn't OpTic's round to like fully lose either. But like that was like that wasn't
they put themselves in a tough position.
Yeah, that's what I mean. There's I'm sure there's ways both teams could have played it better to not allow it to happen. And et cetera, et cetera. But like that wasn't just like, oh, the bomb's planted, they should win this. Like they had to peek out of that doorway. You saw when he peeked out of the doorway in the back door here. Like he takes like fucking 4 stuns to the face. Who is it? Is it it's number 3, right? Is it? Where is it? Sorry, I think it's right here. It's shot. Maybe it's Shotzi or number 3. Who is it? Fred. Watch him peek the door. Like, of course, there's other things you can do to, again, you know, that's just not my fucking job to do that on this, something like this. So, but
I know what they could have done differently. But
look, he takes fucking 2 stuns to the face and bullets. Like, you want him to just now check the bomb. It's not easy. Like, it's again, this isn't fully like OpTic's round to win. They don't like. I don't know.
At the end of the day, if you're going to lay a bomb, you in that position, you either have to have this. You got to have something. The street. You got to have courtyard. You got to have some control over that site so you can check it. Like we have seen so many, to your point, diffuses and ninjas and clutches because they try to plant that bomb and they try to finesse in P1 and like there's some finesse ability in that, but you have no ability to check. You really check is just either wall banging or flying out the door, and it's just not going to end well if people are just sitting there preeming that shit. So
yeah, there's a lot of other things that can obviously happen there.
Yeah. But. The other interesting other thing I want to talk about, and then we'll move on. Because I think they're a talented team, but they have one other kind of issue right now. I've kind of noticed is they played 7 series. They've won the coin toss 4 of the 7 times, or the other team lost the coin toss.
They pick Team A every time, yeah.
They pick Team A every time. They banned sub-base hardpoint in 7 series, and they banned evasion control in 7 series. So I don't know how you feel about it, but my personal opinion, you can have one unquote auto veto, but having 2 prevents you from really trying to get the other team's best map pools out. Do you think OpTic need to probably long term do a better job expanding their map pools so they're not kind of limited in how these series can be structured? In their favor?
I mean, absolutely. Auto vetos just don't.
I know your thoughts.
Yeah, you just can't have an auto veto. And before anyone that's watching this says, "Oh, FaZe vetoed this all year," yeah, and it fucked us. Like, trust me. Like having an auto veto is usually an extreme, like just crippling thing to your map pool that will fucking destroy you in later series and later throughout the year. Like it's something that teams, again, it's easier said than done while you're just spectating or just watching. Be like, oh, they should just play this map. But like if you're just getting slammed on the map and you can't fix it, it's also hard to justify just playing the map, right? So you don't really know what happens on behind the scenes of just like practice and stuff. But like, yeah, I hate having an auto veto. I hate the idea of it, and I've watched it hurt my team throughout the years. And again, we've tried obviously not to have that happen, but it's a little bit easier said than done sometimes. But yeah, no, I mean, that's always going to hurt you in the long run, no matter what team you are. OpTic, FaZe, Carolina, Vegas, it doesn't like any team. Like if eventually you will run up to a team that matches a map that you're good at, and if you were just not bad at another map, it would help you out a lot. So like, yeah, I mean, I've never been a fan of that. I feel like a lot of people that watch COD a lot probably agree with that, but you know, I'm assuming OpTic is working on that. It's just, I don't know. It depends on how practice goes. That's a culture and a practice thing for sure. Because I'm sure there are probably a few people that also think like maps are just completely random and you should just never play one. You know, like there are people that think that too, and that it, you know, it is what it is. But like, yeah, I'm not a believer in having like, oh, like this map just sucks. It's like I feel like that's just usually an excuse to just like, I don't know. You have to like be better than that.
You can't. Oh, there's so many ways where it bites you in the ass. We talked about I'll give you other practical examples. Right, last year with Seattle, they like refused in the middle of the season to play Mercado anything. Right, yeah. Hardpoint or S&D.
Didn't they win Mercado S&D at the end of the year too? Isn't that how they beat OpTic?
Because they had to get better at that map because they kept giving people their best maps in the series because they were double banning Mercado in every series, regardless team A or team B. It's Hardpoint S&D. You're going to ban neither. Well, and then the other flip side of it, before you go, Chris, was how you guys beat Thieves at Boston last year. Because Thieves was auto beating with CeeLo control like for the entire stage. And once you come from losers, you don't get that ability to ban a control in that series. And so you don't want to be a map 6 closer for you guys. Was that a CeeLo control that Thieves didn't play?
Yeah, no, and that's a big thing too, is like even like, you know, best of 5 series are one thing, but yeah, best of 9, you have to be able to play all maps. There's also a world where like you also have to just veto a map, and if you're just really good at 2 maps and like you're also good at the map that you're vetoing, like you can be comfortable with that too, right? So like there are some
Yeah.
teams that like technically don't auto veto, but it's just something that they're, they can play it if they need to. But yeah, I mean Seattle is a good example. Last year, I know they had the crazy they played us close on an MDC S&D here and there, and I know that crazy round 11 with Pred and Simp with the whole like Daddy Cheese thing that was nuts. But like yeah, they were Seattle was willingly playing us on like Embassy S&D. And like that was like our best map, and like that happens. We had similar situations last year. Like we were willingly playing New York on a silo search, and we were good at a silo search, but so was New York. But they were terrible at fortress search. So it's like again, like you have to try and eliminate that at all costs if you're obviously trying to be the most complete team that you can be, especially when it comes to finals. But that's the point of practice, culture, and making sure you're getting good practice for those moments.
Yeah, I just listen. The final thoughts on OpTic, and well, I'm going to move on to Miami in a sec. Is just be patient with them. They again have made more changes than the other top teams. They haven't progressed, I think, as fast as some people like, and they've got to learn. And I'm sure they've learned some lessons this weekend that you learn with a lot of changes like that, as far as improving. And if they do the right things, they will get better. But there are some obvious things that they need to work on in order to get to the level that I think you guys are at, I think Toronto's at. But look, they're still capable enough of pulling up to this event and being a real problem, right? Pure skill on their team, they definitely could still make a grand final, regardless of all the shit.
It's
You
still
pull
really
up, you have some hot
new.
maps.
Yeah. That's why I even like what I was saying.
No one's played any lands yet, you know.
I mean, I'm super confident and like happy with like where we're at right now, but we still obviously know that we have a lot of work to do too. Like it's the game is still super new. We're on major one. Major one, like anyone can turn up. Even like last year, I want to say New York won major one last year, and they were like 3-2 or 2-3 before. Like they looked horrible going into the major, and then they turned up and they like really hit a rhythm. Like a lot of things could change. So it's really early into the year to start going crazy, unless you're a team that's obviously now all of a sudden chasing your qualification for champs. That's obviously where it gets a little bit different.
We'll get to some of those teams, but let's talk about another team that isn't in that spot. A team that you and I in the offseason were like, we're rooting for these guys. They're our boys. That is the Miami Heretics, the Vamos squad. They've had some up and downs through the split. They got off to a good start. The middle of the split, they started looking a little iffy. We're like, I don't know. And then they responded this weekend with 2 3-0s, one against OpTic, one against LAG. And all of a sudden now this team is put themselves, I think, pretty firmly. Again, no major one yet, so we'll see how it goes. But before this event, as a top 5, top 6 team, I'm not really worried about making champs and potentially being real potential to be a dark horse at these tournaments. And I think I'm curious for you, Chris, the one game mode for them that they've been stellar at, surprisingly, is Control, the number 1 win percentage team in the league. I don't think anyone would have predicted this before the beginning of the stage. It would be Miami. When you watch them play, like, what impresses you the most about their control game, or just in general watching them play?
Their teamwork, and their understanding of like where to be on the map and when to be on the map, like where to be, when to be there, and then also how important the presence is at the time of like the play and stuff. I've seen a lot of plays where I've watched them play, and like the guy that needs to stay alive, or the guy that needs to hold the pinch, or the guy that needs to really like value his life, like he is the most, like it doesn't matter what happens on the map, if he dies or gets a kill, that's like the game changing kill. Everyone else can do whatever. Usually they have a very good understanding of that, and I'm assuming from just history when they were Heretics in CWL Black Ops 4, they are just very good. Their culture and their coaching and their passion, I know it sounds so cliche, but it really is something that I think helps them a lot. I think they get good practice and they're looking good so far. So like I do think like that's probably their biggest standout for me, is when I watch them, is like the understanding of how important like they need to value lives, and also when to also push and be aggressive. And then just I think they're overall continuously getting better and better. Like they've had some hot starts, then they had a little shakeup, and then they had another hot. I think they're living and learning through the process, and I think it's helping them a lot.
I agree. The thing with this Miami team, we mentioned it a couple of times. This is an experienced team. Vickle, low key, is the person. It might be kind of crazy if you haven't really been following since like the early days, maybe BO4, Jetpack days. But Vickle's the one that's got the least experience. The other guys have been around for a very long time, and I know that their names have been called like a bunch in recent years because they've been fighting through challengers. But these guys have been around the block when they were, Heretics Organization was in Black Ops 4. They were very serviceable. top 6, top 8 teams. So I'm not worried about that experience. And I think in a year where, discipline is important and teamwork is important, this team's got that checked. Sometimes the slaying can be a little bit iffy with the team. It is what it is. We see the talent of some of the other top 4 teams. You take it or leave it, but the teamwork's going to help them not scam against the teams they should be at the bottom of the league, some of the other mid-pack teams. And so I think Miami is well suited to be at this level all year. Be floor like top 6, get consistent placings, make it to the weekend and all the events. And if they get hot in a weekend, I will not be surprised if this team makes it to a final. I truly won't. And I think the nice thing for them is I just think I don't think there are many Miami haters out there. You know what I'm saying, Chris? I think
it's very hard to hate on the team.
Very hard to hate this team.
Yeah.
Really, unless you're like, I don't know, maybe some like Barca fan, because I know Vickel's a big Real Madrid fan. If you're just like a Barca ultra, you can't root for, what I mean? Maybe that's the edge case, but for the most part, I think the community is behind these guys. I think when they go to LAN, they're going to be surprised at the amount of support these guys are going to get at Boston. Like, I think they have a chance to make some noise throughout the year. So a good, I'll say this for me is I thought after the first week coming back against Seattle and Boston, they didn't look that great. Teams started really banning Terminal against them and Respawn and Search, and they kind of were forced to beat people on like Invasion and Karachi. They were sometimes struggling, and I feel like they got way better on Invasion and Karachi this weekend. I really like their chances in the rematch against OpTic. We'll take a look at the bracket later, but I think Miami's got a good chance to get a good place in this event for sure.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's hard to hate them. They're a good team.
Yeah.
They still obviously probably have some more stuff to prove and see the consistency. And that's the biggest thing with them is just they had a good weekend, and then they had like an iffy weekend, and then they had a really good weekend again. And Call of Duty, when it comes to winning events and just the long-term game, is all about consistency, right? It even in scrims, like it's all about how much you can do it, like day to day in a row. Like it's not about just having like one turn up day as much as, or like one turn up weekend as much as having like 4 really good days, especially in an event to win, to do it, Thursday, Friday, or Thursday technically, and then Saturday, Sunday if you get the day off. But my point. So I'm excited to watch them play still. I do think they are good, and I think they're getting better. I think they're learning, and yeah, they're also really cool dudes too. Just like when you talk to them behind the scenes, like I worked with Journey a little bit in the first year. And he was around the Atlanta like apartments and just like hanging out with us all the time. He's a really cool guy, so I'm happy for him.
Yeah, I mean, Vickel's my guy. I watched him in the morning.
Vickel too. Yeah, I played a lot of rank play with Vickel in the morning too. Yeah, he's a cool guy.
Yeah, they're just listen again. It's just so hard to hate this team, and I think for the long term growth of COD, having a strong Spanish team brings a really good non-English speaking audience, international audience to the scene. So I'm rooting for these guys. Again, I think they're rematching OpTic. They just played them this weekend. They're going to play again this weekend. It is always difficult to beat people in the rematch. I think OpTic's going to give it a real go. But right now, I would take Miami in that matchup. And if they go there, I mean, obviously they'll play you guys. But if you guys beat LG, obviously. But yeah, really, really excited where we're going with Miami. I think a team on the flip side that I thought was a decent top 6 team and has kind of now struggled after the break is unfortunately LAG. And I know they put a lot of work during the break. They're one of the teams that I think were scrimming when people were taking off. But they had a real tough one against Miami. We're going to take a look at an S&D play here in a second. Very similar situation happened on Invasion that we looked at earlier. But they also lost surprisingly to Minnesota. I didn't really see Minnesota playing that well this weekend, but we'll get to that in a sec. And suddenly this LAG team, after looking promising the first couple of weeks, have been on a little bit of a slide now. And unfortunately, they're still in winners, but they're the last seed in winners by virtue of tie breaks. And it's because of stuff like this. 5-5, Miami had won a nice first map.
Wait.
I don't.
Are you tipping Miami for this?
No.
Okay.
I'm not tipping Miami for this.
Okay.
This is I want you to break down, because you're Mr. S&D, you're Mr. S&D clutch. I want you to break down this round and what the F happened here.
I mean, LAG just made a huge mistake. I'm sure like this is just crazy. I'll let this play out. If I'm remembering this play exactly what I'm remembering, right? This is Vickel's 1v2 defuse, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, Metals, that was a big one. I mean,
Metals gets a 1, but it's a good trade from Fame.
Fame is got a streak. and Assault is running away. And
After
then
killing number 6, yeah, this was they're running away, both running away from bomb. Vickle just hops
Assault just not moving. Like he's pre-aiming and all this stuff with the streak in. Like, yeah, I mean, Assault just needs to go to the bomb full speed ahead. If Vickle gets off the bomb and fucking slams Assault in, like, and just kills him, the game's over.
Doesn't matter. He can't. He's got to hop on it. You know.
Yeah.
So they just played.
So they just made a huge. I mean, this was just a really.
Yeah.
This was just a really huge error that I don't think they will ever make again, to be honest.
I have seen so many teams over the years. I think you probably remember this happened. You guys clutched around like this. Do you remember season 1 playoffs in World War II against E United, where Clay tried on London Docks S&D, where they not this situation happened, but Clay tried to get the guy off a bomb defusing with a streak. It didn't work. The using a streak to stop a diffuser is always a very sketchy proposition.
It's not sketchy if you. I mean, bro, if they just called that streak in and Assault just checks the bomb, like he gets the info of exactly where the guy is, and Assault just gets to the bomb. Like, bro, I mean, look at this play. Look where Assault is. Hold up, Vickle. So look where Assault is right here, and look how close this is to defusing.
Yeah, you gotta switch to this.
Oh shit, I'm tripping. Here you go. Look at Assault, right? And look at the bomb defuse. It's very, very close, right? It's basically done.
Yeah.
Now you back it up.
But
look how much time he takes. Look at this. He's still aiming. He's still aiming. Now he's going. It's just he took like a solid 2 to 3 seconds. That if he just didn't take that, this game is over. He's either defusing or Vickle kills him. Then hops onto the defuse, and then Fame kills him. So, like, again, this was just, like, using a streak to get him off the bomb, especially if you have a teammate there, is a 100% guarantee.
Especially in the new patch, too, because trophies don't
trophies don't work. But, like, either way, the trophy has nothing to do with it. It's just the point is there is physically not enough time in this round for them to win if, like, Assault Assault could literally drop his guns on the floor and run there with his fists, and like it's over. So like again, like he just made a mistake. It is like it happens. But like, yeah, I mean, I'm sure LAG knows that. Like they just made a mistake and like they allowed this round to go down. But like, yeah, this was just a major either miscommunication or just a misread by Assault. Like it you know, whatever it was, or maybe he didn't realize that. It looks like Fame just got that cruise missile and then called it in. Like I'm sure there was a huge miscommunication between the two, and it happens. But yeah, like I actually think like LAG made the best play possible if like they made a 100%, well, I guess technically not 100%, 99.999% guarantee that like they win this round, and they just fucked it up. So just like
that's been their MO all season. Unfortunately, this team has been a win, especially at Respawn, less Surge, because I think they are kind of struggling in the game mode. They've been in winnable positions, and they just kind of find ways to lose those maps. Like for example, you know, when you guys played them that sub base hardpoint. You know what I'm saying? Like that was a winnable situation, and they weren't able to, you know, get key map control on the P5, P1, P2 to end that map, and you guys kind of came back and won that. Like this team, I respect because they do play sometimes fairly disciplined, but they do not. They find ways to lose maps they should win. I feel like they probably have at least another series win if they can do that. But instead, you just kind of look at where they're at right now. Like, you know, outside of all that, I just don't think they're a great search team. And they go from being like I thought before the break, potentially top 16, to now it's going to be difficult to see them getting anything higher than top 8 this event, at least from my POV.
I mean, yeah, they've had some mishaps and stuff, but I still think this team has still played better than like what people were. I feel like people had this team dead last, like they were going to be the joke of the league.
I did too.
Yeah, so I feel again like. Yeah. Of course, you're still going to be critical, and everyone's going to hold themselves to a standard of like you want to win and stuff. You know? But at the same time, like like I still think this team seems to still be locked in and continue to try and get better and stuff. So they're definitely still doing better than what people expected, and I'm sure like they're still trying to prove people wrong and stuff. I know we match up against them and everything, but yeah, like I don't know. That was obviously a mistake, but it sucks because even with that mistake, they still did lose the next map, and like they still weren't looking great. And Miami's probably looking a little bit better, more consistent than them and better than them at the moment. But yeah, like I still think LAG like depending on the decisions that are made and what's going on behind the scenes with practice, I still think they can continue to find steps forward.
Yeah, I'll say this about LAG. I do think that right now their weakest player is Fame. I do think that he needs to individually step it up because at times, especially in the respawns, I feel like he does go rogue. He's not winning those rogue gunfights. So the minimap's looking a little awkward. So either he's got to make better decisions or he's got to step up the slaying. And I think they'll start winning potentially a couple more maps. But I don't see LAG making changes this year. So it's more just continuing to develop with this team and getting better and getting to a point where ideally the next major, especially, they kind of get 3 wins, 4 wins, and it's going to be a tight qualification for champs. It's going to require them to, have a couple of good event placings. This one's just going to be really, really difficult because they have you guys round 1, and they play Thieves, and they've had Thieves' number historically. And also Thieves is not a great hardpoint team. We'll get to that. But beyond that, they have to play Miami, OpTic, or Vegas for top 6, and I don't see them winning that. So I think 8th is probably as far as they get. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about the other LA team really briefly? We'll talk about Thieves.
Yeah, I mean, listen, man, when it comes to them, dude, they're more of a quote unquote rival team or whatever of us, whatever. But I truly, they're 1-10 in hardpoint, and I know scrims are scrims, and I know you have to execute in matches, and also it's very underrated. For example, if you were to like 3-2 a team in hardpoints and scrims, you won majority of maps. That feels good. Like you're feeling okay. Like, yeah, you lost 2, but you're feeling pretty good about yourself after a day like that. Not like great about yourself, but you're feeling like decent. Those 2, you can't veto 2 maps, right? So most likely you're splitting hardpoints at least 1-1. Or sometimes, depending on how your vetoes go, maybe you get the 2 maps that you lost in a scrim, like, however it goes.
Yeah.
But my point is, unless you're 5-0ing teams in hardpoint, like you're bound to split hardpoint sometimes. It happens. Like that. It's like, technically speaking, one team gets their map pick, they veto your best map, you veto their best map, you win yours. Like you trade 1-1.
Yeah.
So I do think, like, as good as you are in scrims, unless you are actually 5-0ing everybody, like it's not good enough to like really just like rely on that. But now, just to like, with that context being said, we've scrimmed these guys. I've watched them play. I don't know how they're 1-10. Like, we play them good in practice, and our practice has been great, but compared to some of the other teams that we played, compared to some of the other teams we played, like I swear they're better than this in practice. But I mean, we haven't scrimmed them like too much like as recently, but I'm just saying throughout the entire year before matches started, especially before matches started, but like throughout the entire year, I don't think this is like a 1-10 hardpoint team. I'm not saying they would be the best team in the world with practice either, but 1-10 is crazy.
I mean, Chris, I hate saying this, but when they play hardpoint, I just feel like they lose so many clutch gunfights. Like big in mixy 3-on-4, 4-on-3, 4-on-4 like trade situations. They just I've never seen a team like this where they just never win those gunfights. Like tactically you can play however, but like their slaying numbers, Chris, I think in hardpoint, they don't have anyone above a 0.9.
Well, clearly they're 1-10.
It's crazy.
But when you're playing bad hardpoint, to have above a 1.0 majority
wouldn't
of the time
be that good anyway. Yeah,
it could still be good if you're playing like context to that, but like
true.
It's just my point is like if you're playing that bad in hardpoint, a lot of the times you're probably falling behind on rotations. And like I know we broke down like the play with FaZe and OpTic, right? And I was saying how like OpTic's running into our pre-aims. Like Tyler, like we were ahead of them. We controlled the pace of the game. Those string of gunfights are not easy, no matter how good you are. And those string of gunfights, again, if you take those consistently because you're getting outplayed in hardpoint, which is usually how hardpoint in theory gets played, right? You're taking harder gunfights. To have a positive KD is really hard. I don't watch LA Thieves religiously for their matches and stuff, more just for prep and other things. So I can't go down, especially with everything, but I can't go down like some super deep dive. But like clutch gunfights and a lot of other things, yeah, those are going to make or break your 220 games. But like to lose 1-10, it's not all clutch gunfights. Like there's something else going wrong, 100%. But you don't lose 10 hard points to clutch gunfights. And if you do, then things are guaranteed to turn around eventually. But that is, I mean, you know, 10 times would be nuts to say that that's like just an excuse at that point. And I'm sure they don't think
I agree.
that
They're definitely making bad team tactical decisions. I also want to address one thing someone's in my chat. LA server issue. I know Denver servers, but it still happens every year. I don't really like that argument. Listen, I know sometimes the match servers end up being weird choices, but I don't want to blame Online Gunfight for this because the past LA Thieves teams, yeah, they've since been inconsistent online, but they're still finding ways to win.
Wait, bro.
And it's like now that you guys aren't scrimming on the same servers.
Bullshit. No, I'll just say it. I'll say it now. That is such bullshit. Yeah. Again, can you technically be a little worse online with server issues? Maybe. Like there is definitely a theory to that exists. Right there, you always want fairness. You always want the best you can. And LA Thieves.
Supposedly they played Carolina on an Atlanta server. Like that's definitely the choices.
So again, there are going to be times where that probably does exist, and that is a fair point to prove. Like that's not fair. I get it.
Yeah,
I have been a player. I've coached the league for a long time now. I have watched teams, and my team specifically, play on a quad Texas host, not being from Texas, and the other team be on it, and win 5 maps in a row. And I've also, like watched it. Like the ping does matter, but when you were playing Hardpoint correctly, you don't lose it 10 times to the server splits. And the other LA Thieves teams, I know they had the one major where they looked really bad online, and I think it was Major 4 last year where they ended up winning it. And they were like joking around, like, haha, like what the fuck? Like we look so bad and then we look so good on LAN. But then they obviously didn't have that great of a year after that for the most part.
Yeah.
9 out of 10 times. And there can be times where you hit a string of fire on LAN where you're playing really good and things just click. I've also had that happen, and I've seen it happen for teams. 9 out of 10 times you're getting shit on in scrims, or you're getting shit on online, and like you're just not playing well online. You are just not. That is not a server thing. That is like just not how that works. If you're losing, and I'm not saying they're using that as, I don't know. I don't think I've never seen Thieves even tweet about that, but. Just for the person that said that, like, if you were losing every hard point, 250 to like 220, and maybe a string of gunfights really changes the game, I guess you could try and use that, but then you better win every fucking event. Then you better win every hard point you play on LAN, which is probably still not going to happen. But I guarantee you that, like, you can go back and, like, a lot of the gunfights you take in Call of Duty are, if you're in an advantageous position, you catch people sprinting, you get easy, like, you're getting freebies when you're playing a better game than the other team.
Yeah.
So to say that is crazy. And that old LA Thieves team have had success, and they haven't played that well online. But like when they went 0-5 online, didn't they get shit on? And then everyone wanted them to get fucking make a roster change.
Yeah, they had a fully bad stage.
Yeah, and then they got shit on, and then they made a role change, and they got their confidence back, and then they were good online again, and then they were good on LAN. Like again, that whole like anomaly like argument to being good or bad is just bullshit. That is a flat out excuse, and I'm not saying LA Thieves is using that as an excuse, but that is an excuse.
None of the player. To be fair, first off,
I know they haven't said that. Yeah,
a couple things. So, somebody checked. TJ said they played on Denver server versus Carolina, which is still a choice. But I don't think, just to be clear, I don't think anyone on Thieves has ever tweeted or said anything or complained about the internet.
Disclaimer for that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they've been. Honestly, most of the players on that team have been very quiet on social media, and I assume that's because it's just they're in a real struggle as a team right now.
Probably
it's
focusing on themselves.
To open that up. Yeah, they're focusing on themselves, but yeah, I don't think online cheese is why this team is struggling. To your point, like they are obviously getting gunned these hard points, but I don't think that's 100% the reason they're struggling in the respawn. You watch them play, like sometimes it doesn't seem very confident, and it's crazy because I thought against Carolina, like. We'll watch them play against Carolina in a sec. Like they looked really confident last map against Carolina. That was a mixy series. They shot the weekend, and by the end in that Carolina series, they were kind of running around Karachi S&D with a lot of confidence. So hopefully they carry on to that. I know I've talked about on the flank that there's a lot of conversation. I think to say where it comes from, I think people on that team talk to other people, and there's a sense that sometimes they don't lock in enough in practice individually. And so the progression isn't as good as it likes, but I just think they're unfortunately positioned by their performance here, Chris. That they're going to play.
Wait,
you guys are LAG.
They said they don't lock in enough.
how do I say this? I think that there are people on the team who definitely kind of tweak during practice. You kind of see where I'm going with that? You kind of get what I'm saying? Or do you even expand on that?
No, I mean
Yeah, it's
I don't really care. I was just I mean,
I'm not saying they're complaining to each other. I'm just saying they're just not. You know what I'm saying? Like they're not locking in on like post map the things that we were doing wrong as a team, how we want to fix it, how we want to play. It's more just like, you know,
well, that's an issue right
the
there.
other coping mechanisms that you really can't have in an environment.
Yeah, I mean that's an issue right there. But yeah, I just wanted to get that out there because I know people always try and use that, and it's just you can't just excuse bad performances, consistent bad performances. Every once in a while, you know, one-off thing here and there, whatever. But consistent bad performances, you can't use that as an excuse. And they haven't used that, but people trying to claim that, like, dude, that old LA Thieves team had plenty of times where they were really good online and they were really good on land, and then they were really bad online and they were really bad on land. You do have your, you know, every once in a while your miracle weekend where things just all click all of a sudden, and that's lovely.
Yeah.
But that's just not a consistent way to be great.
You gotta put the work in practice, and the hard work will eventually pay off later in the season. So,
but give me a LAN league and I'd love it. Sorry.
Yeah, but I mean, listen, I love it too. I hate watching online COD. So, yeah. Either way for Thieves, I just think first off they gotta probably. I mean, I would say you don't gotta answer this, but I think you guys are favorites. LAG Thieves are gonna have to beat them to at least not get dead last, and then they're gonna have to beat the Vegas, Miami, or OpTic to get top 6. And I don't see it. I think the Thieves team. We'll see if there's a Thieves team we see at the beginning of Major 2 because they might make a change. Who do we want to talk about next?
Toronto.
I want to talk about Seattle.
Seattle?
Can we talk? I want to get your thought process on the whole GA conversation with Seattle because
I don't know what's good with those guys, dude.
Bro, so let's get the full history on that. So supposedly against you guys before the break, Abuza was using,
which still makes no sense. How is this a supposedly
only against
thing?
you guys? Yeah.
That still makes no sense. Sorry.
Why he was using it?
No, dude, I genuinely don't understand how they got accused of using single tap. And I don't know if it was ever proven. I know you can watch someone's movement and like try and prove it, the whole thing. But like, I don't know if it was ever proven. But like, I feel like they didn't, like, if you don't defend yourself with that accusation and you just accept the punishment of no scrims, then I feel like that's like almost admitting it, which is odd.
Yeah.
So like, I never understood that situation ever. Sorry, like I still don't get that. That's still so confusing to me. Because I feel like they never said they did it, but they never said they didn't. I don't know. Makes no sense. But
well, first off, the GA process is just like opaque, cloak and daggers. Like I don't know, man. Like Eyes Wide. Have you ever seen Eyes Wide Shut by like Kubrick? No. Where weird movie, but there's like a whole cult thing. Anyway, the whole point is like it's not a very transparent process, so we don't know what goes on in that rep chat all the time. And it comes up a lot, and it's a lot of he said, she said, and we don't have screenshots. We're not in the group DM, so who the fuck knows what's getting said? But I agree, like it didn't seem like Seattle publicly really tried to push back on that. So okay, they got punished for that. And then last week, I think it was last week, you know, they were playing a Skid Row S&D with double smokes, and I think that one got excused because
that was probably a genuine accident.
Yeah, Kyler thought he had a stun or something. I don't know. I think that one's just whatever.
Yeah.
But then in this weekend, there's a situation where they were playing Minnesota, and it was going down to a P5. Kyler Hook was in the dumpster outside of P2. So if you know P2, there's a loading dock. There's a dumpster in that deep corner. They're pretty good, like kind of handy to play, sometimes on rotation or general. Watch Garage, help out like Ticket, like this is all you can do from that spot. And he was kind of also help out in Hill. And he was kind of sneaking that dumpster because there was some pressure Garage. There was a guy in Hill. Big Wig was top P2. And it was clear if you watch the clip that he, you know, did more than 2 pumps. And so I just don't know what it is with the Seattle team. They just can't avoid J controversy. And I'm very curious if like they've gotten now further punishment. They get no warm-ups for this major. I don't know if you've heard anything, but a lot of people
we scrimmed them yesterday, so I don't know. I don't think there's anything happening.
Who the fuck knows what's going on?
That's like my. I think we talked about this earlier. That's like my one gripe with the whole GA thing is, I feel like if you just don't enforce it, I just feel like nothing like matters, and it's like weird. And I know, like in that situation, I know he was like snaking the dumpster, but he was snaking the dumpster, but like the guy he was fighting, he would like the dumpster wasn't in front of him, of the guy he was fighting. Like it wasn't like he was snaking the cover to do it, but like he was snaking where like if someone was to his right on the other side of the dumpster, they could not shoot him because he was obviously going back up and down while fighting the guy in front of him. So he was like kind of like snaking the air for his like actual gunfight, but like snaking the dumpster behind him because of it. And I don't know. Like I truly feel like there's some things that can be an accident, and then like I feel like snaking is just like very avoidable.
Yep.
Like well, for, like consistently. So like I don't understand that. And like maybe it was just like it was the air in front of him, so it wasn't like he wasn't thinking like that. I don't know. But
yeah.
It's just weird how the team keeps having like a weird mishap. It's odd to me.
It's not just the same person. So like I know Collar's the second one I think is a yellow card, but the Collar dumpster one was a red card to me. The Abuza don't tap GA. I've seen the clips. As someone that uses single tap, it kind of looks like he's using it, but obviously that the moving GA stuff is always kind of hard to prove. I don't know if you remember the whole Modern Warfare 2019 ATS debacle with Dallas Empire. It always just ends up being a mess because it's not like always super transparent. So I don't know what's the Seattle team and GAs, and we'll dive in and see if they ever actually got a real punishment for this one, but who knows? Yeah. I hate the GA process.
It also just depends on like what it also depends on what the teams actually think of it. Like I don't think anyone cared about the double smoke. Just because it was probably a genuine accident.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone like the single tap thing. I think breaking the single tap GA. I know this was like never fully proven, so disclaimer for that. But like,
that was Toronto trying to get an edge against Seattle in that match. I think.
No, I don't think Toronto gives a flying fuck about playing.
No,
Surge.
that's why that's where the clips came from, though.
Yeah, but if you think Toronto was looking at Seattle and saying, how can we limit these guys? Like that, like let's have some fucking theory to nerf Seattle. You're fucking high, Ben.
I think the way it went down is they were doing, they were doing research on the team they were about to play. They were watching the clips from the most recent series, and they're like, "This looks fishy," and they dove into it, and they saw an opportunity. To,
maybe they saw an opportunity.
I don't think they were scared to play Seattle. That's not what I'm saying.
Oh,
I think they were just watching VOD.
I think.
Context is important.
If they call out Seattle for potentially using single tap, if it was Toronto, I don't even know if it was Toronto, but like if it was them. It's because, bro, what I was about to say before you said that, what you were doing is like, bro, breaking the single tap GA, in my opinion, is worse than snaking because I think you're willingly being a weirdo. It says
you have to turn the setting on.
You're willingly,
you have to literally go in your settings and turn it on.
Like snaking too, like I get it. Like maybe you're in the zone, whatever, and that's still really easy not to do. But I think you're willingly choosing to be a weirdo and break like a GA by lying about it too, saying you're not using it. So again, I hope he wasn't doing that. But regardless of the point. Toronto didn't look at that and say like, how can we get a 1-up or like that looks fishy? Let's like, attack Seattle for doing that. Toronto looked at that saying, oh, that looks fishy. And they want to make sure the integrity of the league is being kept. So that was not like, context. Yeah. Toronto didn't look at that saying, how can we get a 1-up on Surge? I guarantee you. And I wish Scrap was in this chat right now so he can roast you for that.
He probably would, but
he would.
I need to listen. We were going back.
That was crazy.
I need to
that was the craziest shit you've ever said.
No. I was trying to. It's because I said it in that context.
Yeah.
No. Because I was trying to say that like they were probably watching the VOD. They're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like this guy is doing single tap. Let's dive into this one because they were obviously trying. They had like 2.5 weeks to prepare for their fucking opponent. You know what I'm saying? Like, anyway, I do think the legit thing with Seattle, though, actual legit criticism other than GA drama is. Now that they have played 7 matches, like, I think teams have effectively found a way to counter this team of vetoes because if you don't play them on terminal, it ends up being a decent amount of like Skid Row, Karachi, and Invasion this series, and they have not played the best on those maps. I think Invasion Search are actually really good on, but the other like Invasion, Hardpoint, every time I watched them play, they really struggle on the map. I think Skid Row, Hardpoint, they haven't played well either. They have a very situation they need to figure out, which is teams are just like banning terminal against them and saying you just got to beat us on the other maps. We're just gonna get double terminal out of here, and like you got to prove that you can beat us on the the other maps in the pool. So right now in Respawn, Seattle hasn't looked the best since the break. They've been good at search. Don't get me wrong, but they only get you so far. We talked about that a bunch on this show. You can be the greatest search team on earth, but you can't win respawns consistently on a respawn map pool. You can't rely on just going to game 5 every series.
Yeah. They're like a streaky team right now. It looks like they just can't find their like consistency yet, but they could turn up still and like have like good strings of like greatness. But at the same time, like they probably just like searching for consistency and stuff. I don't know. They're an
Here's
odd
a problem, Chris. Here's a problem. So here is their bracket. Here's their bracket. They got a very difficult bracket draw. I want to talk about this. So they play Toronto winners round 1.
Yep.
Which I think they played earlier on this year, and Toronto kind of beat them pretty bad.
Yep.
I
Toronto's very
think the
good.
Hardpoint wasn't close, the S&D wasn't close, and it was, and so I expect Toronto to likely be the favorite. Now, again, upsets can happen. First match on land, all sorts of bullshit can happen. Who knows? But I would say, like, take that all in a vacuum. We take all the variants. Like, Toronto would be the favorite in that series. Seattle lose. They would then drop down and play Boston, losers round one, which I think of all the teams in losers right now between Thieves, Vegas, and Carolina is probably the team you least want to play, especially because, the crowd's going behind Boston. The players feel like they have some momentum. We'll talk about them in a minute. That's positive, even though they lost to New York last series. Like, that is the toughest draw. And so there is a non-zero chance that Seattle get double first rounded at this tournament and they're out by Friday. It's pretty legit. And that'd be a tough, considering where they were 2 weeks into the season,
Yeah.
We're talking about
they got to turn
stuff.
up. Yeah. This is what it is. It's definitely a tough draw, but that's just the name of the game. Got to beat who's in front of you.
Yeah. So we'll see. That is like, when you talk about teams that might have the most disappointing major, unfortunately, I'd probably say Seattle right now based on that draw. There's a good chance that happens. But let's move on, because I know we only got we got some decent time, but
we're making good we're making good progress at the moment.
Making good progress. What do I want to talk about? Let's talk about Boston then, because we just mentioned them. Only one series this week. It was an interesting one against New York. And I think the way this series went is sort of indicative of sort of what this team's going to deal with if they kind of stick with this sport throughout the year. You've got really talented youngsters in Capsule and Snoopy on their team, but they are prone to mistakes. They're still learning. But on the flip side, sometimes they just get in it. They are players that are very capable of takeover mode. I mean, Snoop had a series earlier in the split where he was just like unkillable.
Really well.
But if you pull up this last round, Chris, like, you kind of see the series. This round kind of is Boston. It's very essence as to what happens in this round.
Okay, let's see.
I don't know if you remember this one.
Is this when Snoopy fell off the map?
Yeah, and then Caps almost clutches. Yeah.
Well, dude, so Caps, oh yeah, that was nuts. We can watch this whole round, but Caps clutch was, I can't believe.
Almost insane.
Well, dude, he actually made a good play. We'll talk about it when we'll get there. That was nuts. But we can watch this round play out. So
Invasion, you got to slow it down. There's a lot of things to look at. Trying to, we're already deep in this map, so you kind of know spots people playing. High rise, sorry, my bad.
Yep.
Dante, New York kind of plays around the streak. Dante calls it in. I think, look, post patch, you might be able to find kills with no trophies. He tries to kill the guys in the building. He can't. Boston's eventually going to be able to actually get this bomb down. And you're going to see that Snoopy tries to make sort of a late play and falls off A side, kind of trying to make like a pinch play as this round kind of develops.
Those ACs be bumping you, dude. They be bumping you out down there.
Yeah, there's some sketchy ledges over there. You never know.
You go down there, and those ACs, when you're hugging the wall, they be bumping you. I don't know if that's what happened, or if he just like missed it, but that's tough.
I've fallen off at least once this year. It happens. So he falls off. It's a 3v4. Boston kind of plays some kind of corners. They don't really play together here, but it is what it is. And unfortunately, New York's to do a good job of just kind of pinching and finding all these players. But Capsule, talk on
this play, dude. So he kills one. All right, probably GG. He technically has no idea that Hydra like pinched and stuff. I don't think Hydra really made any noise or got called out.
I don't think I got called out at all. Yeah.
Crazy shots right there. W. Like, that was crazy shots. He puts himself in the position to do this. Now, if you're Cap, you're thinking like, all right, he's on the bomb. Maybe I got to go check it. But I feel like the last place on high rise search and destroy you think Hydra is where he is, because of the sole fact that like you think Hydra's playing close to the bomb to make sure he can get that instant trade. So I feel like Cap played this as perfectly as possible. And like Hydra takes a crazy risk only really watching over him or the street. Like, like kind of letting Cap run up. And like he gets this kill. And now, like right here, if you break this, like you like, I feel like Cap's shoulder to the left of like expecting Hydra to be like near him is like a smart play. And Hydra's patience obviously, wins this for them. But he was probably so tilted right there that he was there. I could not believe he got close to that. That was a crazy play out of Cap, low key. Those second shots on Kismet were like what he needed to actually have a chance there. But Hydra's patience really worked there. But I really thought, like, for some reason, like, dude, Cap was probably like, what the fuck is Hydra doing right there? Like, he was probably so confused. Yeah, that was nuts. That was a crazy play.
Yeah. I mean, Cap almost clutches it. I agree with you. Like, I don't think at any point in that round, this Paco was kind of underground. I just don't. He made a good play. Dies. They don't really have info. I don't think they would assume he's, to your point, close to be bomb side. Like, he'll play from Paco, but Cap almost clutches the 1v4, and And again, this is where the Boston team, you could see. Listen, I can see the thought process with this roster, right?
I think everyone can. Yeah.
It's just a development thing with them. It's just getting more discipline out of those two guys. And look, you could say like at times maybe you want Preston to be a little more consistent, Austin to be more consistent. Is what it is with those guys. But I think if Boston sticks with it, I think this team can be good. I don't think they need to. They're gonna start losers bracket. Courtesy of just kind of having some kind of rough edges this split. And as we talked about with the Seattle dropping down to them, like they also have a good chance to get last at this because they may have to play Seattle or Toronto lose round one as opposed to some of the other teams lose bracket and a draw. But like I kind of see that this Boston team can just kind of work through the peaks and valleys. Like there's and you look at their map pool, like there is a lot of opportunity for this team to like really rebound next major. I kind of see it. They can get the best out of some of
Yeah.
these guys.
Yeah, no, I don't think anyone really thought Boston was going to start off like super hot either, just because you have like you're really like I think they formed this
squad
team
wiped their whole
around
team. Yeah,
that,
Snoop.
but they're also like they're building around Snoop and then having Cap running around like like with like the talent and like the other two players within Priesta and Slasher to like develop these guys into being probably a little bit smarter with that talent, like trying to find the balance of hey, you can be a crackhead and run around the map and get all these kills, but you also have to make sure when you're doing this, you're doing, X, Y, and Z to make it better. So I think this team will constantly get better if they don't like tilt or anything, which I don't see them doing so. So I don't think they're in a tough spot, but I think there's a lot of hope for them in that sense. Where like I'm not in panic mode if I'm a Boston fan or a player or anything.
Yeah, I just think obviously they're hosting this major. I think they would have liked to have started in winners.
Of course. Yeah.
But I think Boston to me is still gonna make champs. They'd have to they have a lot of maps between now and then.
Mhm.
But I think if they can effectively develop Snoop into being a very good aggressive player and they can work with Cap to kind of build the game a little bit better. Because he's got that potential sometimes to just go on absolute tear on people, especially in S&D. He's a massive playmaker. He's been a playmaker since he got in the league in Search. I think this team could go places, but we've been saying that about Boston for like 3 years, so we're still kind of waiting for it to happen. So,
Yeah.
I don't know. This could be a rough major for them, but I wanted to highlight that play. I thought that was an NTs for sure, and they definitely gave New York some trouble. And they're who I want to talk about next. This New York team's very interesting to me, Chris. They went 2-0 this week, which is obviously typical. They've been pretty solid. Their only real loss, actually, they went 1-1 this week. Apologies. They got 0-3'd by Toronto, and they beat Boston 3-2. And I think for this New York team, my assessment, I don't know if you agree, and obviously you don't want to tip too much away. They're obviously have played insane Search, right? 9-1 S&D. But there's definitely vulnerability in the respawns, and I think in particular in control that might limit their win conditions slightly. Do you feel that way? Like just because they're not as deep in 3-game modes that they're relying on trying to clutch on these game fives as they're 3-0 in?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're also like maybe a little bit just from like the statistics standpoint. I think they're just still trying to find a consistency. They made the roster change and making sure like trying to get the roles and everything going like for them and all that stuff. So I think their culture with their team and everything they've done last year, I think they're going to continuously just get better and better. And if there's one team also just to talk about too, like they've had like their struggles and they haven't looked like the best. Not just probably online, but just like I feel like this team is also like when they find that hot streak, they're very very good. Even last year, the way they won champs, I mean, didn't they get 3-0'd by Toronto in that winners finals? And then they came out in 5-0'd, or is it a little closer than that?
No, Toronto beat them, and then New York beat you guys, and then they like we had like our series with New York, which was whatever. But like when they replayed Toronto the next day, is my point. Like they were like a whole different team. So like this New York team is also a team where if they start clicking, they can be really good. They're world class team. They're world champion. They're their current world champion team too. Like they're insane. So I do think their win condition can look a little weird here and there, but I wouldn't be like over analyzing that right now, to be honest. Yeah. Again, they bring in Dante, and I think is definitely a bigger systematic respawn change. I almost thought it would be more in Search, but watching how this game played out, I think there's still some things they're trying to figure out about their team system and respawns that have been difficult. And I think at times watching them play control, I think my biggest criticism of their control game is we talked about the flank is especially on offense, they don't effectively use the clock to their advantage times on offense. You know what I'm saying? Like they don't stop the clock enough when they can on offense. Don't play enough around the point when they can. I'm not saying they need to stack when they need to stack stuff like that,
Mm.
but they are reducing their margin for error because they aren't managing the time effectively, especially on high rise, which can go to kills. But if you can stop the clock, kind of farm kills, even if you're solo capping, you can put yourself in a position where it's 8 to 7 in lives with a minute left. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And it's basically just TDM at that point.
Yeah.
You don't need to get the 3 ticks on A. So there's still some work to do, but I still think New York's definitely still got the talent to come to this event and win.
Yeah,
And they've got a
no,
lot of maps that I think I would want to, dude. I
they're
mean,
good.
Search Skid Row, their Skid Row Search looks really, really good. Their high rise S&D looks really, really good. I watched them play Karachi Hardpoint. I think of all of their hard points, that's the one I really think that they had the most mastery of. I mean, Paco just gets lost on that map and just finds 5 out of nowhere. Like he just disappears. And suddenly he's shooting 3 people in the back. Like guy's a fucking playmaker, man.
Yeah,
There's
I
a
mean,
reason he's been a top
they're a
player
good
in the league.
team, and
Yeah.
again, same with I have a very similar feeling with Toronto too. Like I think the top 4 teams on paper are all really good. You know, I think with this how things go, a lot of it is also turning up on the day when you play each other. A lot of it's finding that consistent teamwork. But yeah, no matter what the win condition looks like for some of these teams now, I still think just how this game plays and how new it still really is, since this is still Major 1. Like, yeah, I think they can easily find a hot streak and play really good. And it's just, we'll have to kind of wait and see. But yeah, they have a lot of talent on their team, and I know it's weird. Like I still like feel like I don't know. I feel like people like forget like they had a really good season last year and a really good ending. So it's not like, I feel like sometimes the way people talk about them, not here, not saying you, I just see some people on social media, you know, like it's just like I still think people forget like they are really fucking good. So
Yeah, let's move on because I agree. New York's got
yeah,
New York and Toronto will probably face off in this one. They play New York plays ROKKR. We'll get to ROKKR in a bit. Not a gimme match with the way the ROKKR was supposed to be playing this week, but who knows? Then if they win, I think the Warriors probably playing Toronto for top 3, so we'll see that rematch potentially. And I think New York will be thereabouts in this event. I feel like even if they got a battle through losers at one point, I still feel like the talent of this team, even with some of the up and down respawn, I think they can still figure out how to get deep into the weekend. So
yeah,
we'll see. But let's talk about Toronto. We'll talk about the other team you mentioned. Big 2-0 week for them. Obviously, they slammed New York, and then they had a 3-1 against Vegas. And okay, I will say for Toronto, the most impressive thing about their team right now is they are in utter cruise control in a hard point. Of course, I'm sure you guys have played them a bit. Are they like probably the like maybe you don't want to tip too much, but are they probably the best team you play when you scrim in hard point? Or they're
you say Toronto?
up
Sorry,
there? Yeah, Toronto.
I mean, I think Toronto's. Yeah, I think they're a great team. We play that. Like, we scrim them. I think they're they're great. I think their teamwork, not even this year, as much as like I think their overall system throughout the years, like some of their teamwork and the way they played Hardpoint. I know I think they struggled in Vanguard, if I remember correctly. But like regardless, like the way they play the game is really they play it really well, and their teamwork's really good. I think the system they formed has just been great over the years, and they have a lot of talent. So, and I think Envoy fits their mold pretty well too, of just like how they play, and like he brings a little bit more firing power for them that helps them. And again, in general, when you play those guys, you have to be on top of your game, and it is just they're one of the best teams in the game right now.
Yeah, I'm excited to see this Toronto team on LAN. I think the Envoy pickup. Listen, I thought Charlie was doing some good work for them last year, but I understand the thought process on picking up Envoy, and they've wasted no time. They had one blemish that series against Boston, whatever. I mean,
It's
people
gonna
have a
happen, though.
bad day of COD. Yeah, you
People
can't be.
people really
They're
underrate
not robots.
how day to day COD can be too. And again, I know we still talked about it earlier in this episode, but there's only 48 people in the league. The worst team, the worst of the worst team, in quotations, is still elite pro players. You can't just come out and not play well and just expect to walk through people. Of course, there is a skill gap. Of course, there's better teams than others, but you still gotta play your game. And the way COD can be, like, you can have you have that scrim where you 3-2 a team and you feel really good. Like, you kind of write that off in a scrim, but those 2 maps can be losses in a match, right? And then all of a sudden you find yourself down 0-1 or 1-2 or something. So Yeah, I think they're great. You know, you're gonna have a bad day at COD, and it is what it is. Not something to overthink. Just learn from, and I think they kind of do that pretty well. So Toronto's in a good spot.
Agreed. Let's move on. Let's talk about Minnesota. This was a surprise team this last weekend. I really it's I will say this. They start off on 4 and I was like, dude, the Minnesota team is up there with Thieves as like most T1 most disappointing team. It's split, and we talked to Lamar accuracy on the flank this weekend, and Lamar was like, bro, after it started, I basically went to the team and said we need to change everything. Like what we're doing right now is not working. We need to completely 180 our mindset. And I know that the caliber of their team, I mean, they've had like gotten to the more favorable part of their schedule, but you still got to beat those teams, and they have been very clean in these series since they've gotten back. 3-0 in Carolina, 3-0 in LAG, and beating Surge in a game 5. Like beating Surge game 5 SND, I think is extremely typical.
Yep.
So I think this ROKKR team has gone from potentially being in losers to picking in with the 7th seed, not even the 8th seed. They got the 7th seed in this bracket. And what has impressed you the most the last few weeks from watching this Minnesota ROKKR team play since the break?
I mean, just their ability to turn it around. You know, they turned around their season with some pretty big wins, some important wins. I want to say Vivid's been playing pretty well too. And just in general, it seems like they've gotten like I know Linz has played well. I saw something the other day that like I think he's like number 1 or number 2 right now for the Rookie of the Year. Like he's like back in the race. Like he kind of made a progress like up the ladder. I don't remember like who was in first and second and whatever. But regardless, like he's been playing good, and I think their system's clicking a little bit more, and that's huge. So I mean, their ability to turn around is nice. Usually with Lamar on a team, the system will get figured out and respawn where they'll kind of find like what's best. And I just don't think their Slayers were really getting the kills and generating the kills that they needed. I'm not sure what was causing that, but it seems like they're getting a little bit more confident and playing a little bit better. So, I mean, that they needed to do what they did, and we talked about it last episode, and they came out there and did it. So it's just really good on them for now.
Yeah, I definitely want to tip Reese. I think Reese has been part of this big push to get them in a spot to be really serviceable for this event. I think Lamar, especially, had a good last series against Seattle. I think you're still waiting for Big Wake to be the Wake we've seen in past seasons. So still keeping tabs on that. And I think Linz has been their most impressive player almost the whole split. Like he's come in, both him and Abuza, man. Listening to them call out again with like players that aren't English as first language coming in, and we've talked about this. It's not just like the speaking; it's also the being able to listen and react off that information. It's been impressive to watch their arrows when they do listen ins and comms. Like those guys have been speaking and reacting and shot calling. Like just been really happy what I've seen from those guys. So there's a lot of potential with this team, and have generally kind of evened out their map pool by the end of the stage. I think they have a couple of maps that they're a little iffy on. But I think this Minnesota team can keep at it, and I think they're going to be in the mix for champs. You know what I'm saying? Like I think they'll be on the right side of that conversation instead of chasing. For their bracket draw, they are going to play New York, which I think there's potential there, right? I think Minnesota, if you look at the hardpoint maps that they're really solid at, like a Skid Row, like Invasion at times could be in a good potential. They get Karachi out against New York. Maybe they get Terminal as well. They might be there, but obviously that they've also seen them a couple times on sub base, and I think that's a tricky map for them. So we'll see. I think they got a chance versus New York. If they do lose that, then they will drop down and play Carolina, who I think they should beat, even though Carolina made changes. And from there, they're going to have to be Boston, Toronto, or Seattle to get top 6. So I think it's doable for Minnesota to get at least top 6.
Yep.
Which would be a massive W as to where that's good damage limitation off of where they were the middle of December, you know?
Yeah.
So
they definitely look better. I'm interested
team,
to see how the progress goes.
Yeah, team I got my eye on for this event. Like one to watch for sure. 2 teams though, I think unfortunately we're gonna kind of bulk talk about this. That I think I really think are more likely candidates to just kind of play one series and be out of here is Carolina and Vegas, and in particular for this Carolina team. So they just made 2 changes. It seems like Tej is going to play at least to the end of the stage. I know he came in a substitute role last week with Real's visa situation. Sounds like that's still sorting. And then Fells come in for GodRx, and that's a tough one for GodRx, but I think he was the weakest player on the team. And it seemed like it was off playing with him. They were just a little too slow. So they brought in Fellow, who was always serviceable in these stop-start setups. Obviously, they played you guys, and I was close, and they played Thieves, I was close. And I want to pull up most of the turning point in the Thieves series. And it's just unfortunate, but they almost like lost confidence after this round, which is an issue because they really S&D's been the weakest game mode for this Carolina team.
Yeah.
They are 1-9 after this weekend. And if you want to watch this is just such an unfortunate round.
We got a play in. Let's see.
Yeah. So they hit mid map on offense, like it, good aggression. Smokes go down. Afro gets a kill. And TJ's on 1 HP tragic. And dies to a stun. Yeah. You see 0 HP. That's just a glitch, but he's basically 1 HP. And
that is tragic.
What was potentially be a 3v3 now is a 2v3. They're still stuck in red. New York's kind of got the map. They're going to work the picks. And from there, Carolina didn't win a single round after this. And they kind of lost a little bit of composure. Thieves gained a little bit of life. Thieves actually won the round before this, to be fair. So it was almost, they won 5 straight rounds. Yeah. But this is a missed opportunity for Carolina. They looked really good in that Karachi Hardpoint before this. They've gone up to a 4-1 lead in this map and then tossed it away.
Yeah, I mean, they're like a brand new team now with a double change, and like they have a lot to work on, and obviously not a lot of time to work with it. But yeah, that was just, I mean, the stun grenade just killed them. That's just like tough. You can't like do anything about that. And I'm sure they'll go back and try and like keep showing promise and keep trying to get better and better. But I mean, it just sucks that they're like kind of going everywhere with the visa problems, which is probably annoying for them because Real is supposed to be like their main guy, like low key. He's supposed to be like their
series
like
also had Chris
and Gwen, of course. But yeah, what?
Yeah. We should also mention this is like a 3-hour series against Thieves.
Yeah, because of the delay. Yeah.
Yeah, because after map 1, the Thieves guys, I don't know if their facility or their room lost power, but basically it took them like an hour to get it back up, get set up in a different room. And it kind of killed, I think, some positive momentum Carolina had because they ended up losing the terminal search like pretty convincingly after the restart. But just missed opportunities for this Carolina team. And I don't hate the changes, and they might make further changes after this major. But they're just a super. I mean, they've won now 7 maps. Prior to this weekend, 3 of those were all in one series. They've gotten 3-0'd in 4 series. They battle against you guys, but map 5, obviously, you guys kind of controlled. And then this one, it's just tough, man. It's just not a lot of positive takeaways for this team right now.
I mean, there is a positive takeaway. The 3-0s that you were talking about were just not with TJ and Fellow. And now they got ever since they've gotten Fellow, they showed life in our series and had a chance to bring it to main 5 and obviously, give themselves an opportunity to win if they could have won the map. And then the same thing with LA Thieves. It's not the results you want, but I mean, I feel like that's definitely an optimistic way to look at it. It's they went from like GodRx. I have he's had his time like in the past, and he's he's had his ups and downs through his career. He's a really good dude, but he was playing terrible. Like he wasn't playing to his standard, and they replaced him and got Fellow, and like they got better. And now with that, like I feel like again they've showed promise. It sucks that they didn't beat the #1 seed at the time, which is again a really rough match, and then they still played us close, and then LA Thieves, they fell short, which it sucks that they kind of like threw that last map away. But I think they've gotten better with these changes, and they just don't have a lot of time to work with. But you never know. But I feel like at least they're starting to show some promise, and then hopefully they can work with this momentum to keep getting better. So obviously it's still a long season. Like it's not like their season's over type deal. But those 3-0s that you were talking about, a 2-man roster change is like a complete team change. Like it is a complete flip of everything. So I think there's some signs of life, but it's just the big thing is just they don't have a lot of time to figure it out.
Yeah, especially Search because But
the 2 people they brought in the Search though are also very historically Search stars. TJ is a very good Search player, and Fellow is also a very good Search player. So it's not like
it's a reason he's called Mr. Mid Map,
But yeah, that's what I mean. So you're saying like there's not a positive for their Search, but like realistically there can be. I'm not saying it's gonna.
It's just hard. It's just hard with the time left. Yeah. I mean, they only had a couple of. I think that team formed basically the back end of last week, and they only had a couple days of practice. So let's explain what happens. First event are also crazy for this. So you fly out pro team today, right? You're flying out later with your team. A lot of players fly in the afternoon. Wednesday the first event usually is your normal IT checks, but you also have to do usually a whole media day stuff. They got to do like get headshots for the season, content stuff. So like there is like you don't get a lot of free time on Wednesday in particular. You maybe can get a scrim in.
You get
there's always tech issues on Wednesday.
You absolutely get a full scrim in.
You get, but you can't get like as hard like it is to later events in the year where you don't have as many obligations on Wednesday to get like 2, maybe 2.5. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but even that though, there's always
I mean,
there's always I'm sure the PCs are gonna all shut off or something, and the internet's not gonna work for the first day anyway, and we're only gonna get.
That's what I'm saying. There's always some fugaze.
There is always some fugaze, but you're almost guaranteed to get like 1 full scrim in for sure.
My guess is they probably worked pretty hard. They didn't take yesterday off. They probably worked super hard yesterday to catch on things they want to catch up.
Yeah.
Same with today before they left, especially in search, just like kind of figuring out how they want to play. And try to see what they can salvage from. Again, this is just damage limitation at this point. Any points they get at this point is bonus because I don't think there's a lot of expectation on them at this. And they're going to play. They don't play till Friday, so they also, in addition to what I said about Wednesday, they have all day Thursday as well to scram and practice and all that stuff. But they end up to play New York or Minnesota coming in here to try and get at least top 8 out of this event. I know they haven't played New York yet, but they had played Minnesota a few weeks ago. Before they had well, that was with TJ as a sub.
Not with
and
Fellow.
They didn't play too not with Fellow, and they didn't play too bad with TJ if I remember. I think map 1 was really, really close. And I think the Control Invasion was a classic 5 gamer. I don't think the search was.
That's why I'm saying like I really don't think
a high-rise
the Carolina team now is as like negative, like the negative tone around them right now doesn't need to be as it is, just because I think when you look at just the play styles of GodRx and T-Fellow, GodRx is a slow player. He is not a speed demon. He's not like he is not a fast player, and Fellow is. What I don't like, I know Fellow uses an AR. Like Fellow is a fast-paced player. The reason why he has a 0.9 to a 0.95 a lot of the time, he obviously has his share of like playing good too, is because of the pace that he plays at. Fellow is in the mix. He plays at a good pace, and that is a complete and 180 change up for the Carolina team. Like I think his placing or his play style alone, not even statistically kills wise, completely changes his Carolina team. So like they can definitely play well against like a Minnesota, like that they definitely can. So I think there's a lot more hope for them than I guess that meets the eye realistically. They can also lose them too. It's not like they're looking like elite, but I feel like 2 weeks ago I would have told you Carolina. Yeah. Like just don't even show up, to be honest. Like that's like they looked like shit. But like now I do feel like there's a lot more positivity around like what can be for them.
The TJ thing they were forced into, again, visa issues are
but TJ's been playing well. He's been playing well.
TJ's been playing well, but like, visa issues are very difficult. You don't want to like especially with Real, who has a whole career ahead of him, you don't want to risk getting him in the country, lying to board, you know what I mean? Like
it's a long season, dude. It's a long season. It's not worth it.
So, so I think he's in Toronto right now. I think the Toronto facility has actually been letting him play Shout. Once again, Ultra been doing this a lot of people, like Shout Ultra for letting other people play from their facility. But he's come in, he's been solid. Still looking for a little bit from Fellow, but obviously tough with 1 weekend. Let's see what Carolina can do. The last thing I want to talk about is Vegas. They're also going to lose his bracket. They played only 1 series this weekend against Toronto, and it was kind of going through the motions. I will say, and I assume Toronto is doing this because High Rise is kind of the weakest map across all modes in the pool right now. They did kind of let High Rise Control get in the series versus Vegas, and Vegas won it in round 5. But that's the first Control win that Vegas has had all split. They were 0-6 before that. 4-8 in Hardpoint now, and unfortunately they're S&D. And again, they played Miami, New York, OpTic, and FaZe in Toronto back to back. It's not like the easiest draw. So their S&D record, which was good off the rip, is kind of deflated. So I don't know how you feel about this Vegas team right now, but maybe less optimistic than Carolina.
You said less optimistic?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's a fair assumption. Again, I don't really know how their practice is going and what, is really going on with them. They had some tough throws in the beginning of the season, right? Like they had some matches that they probably should have closed out and they didn't. So there could be signs of hope there. Maybe their practice is going better. Not too sure. But regardless, if they're in losers and they play the loser of Miami and OpTic, it's not an easy match either way. It really just depends on how this last week has gone for them and if they've been able to turn anything around. But it's still going to be tough. And that Control practice, hopefully it's going well. But that's a big game mode that they need to turn around. And winning 1 versus Toronto, which I guess maybe might not be Toronto's strongest mode. You have to like kind of see it's good. It's it's a step, but everything else is like, is that actually consistent, right? So we'll have to wait and see.
Well, the difficulty for Vegas is they're going to play either Miami or
Yeah, they got a tough
OpTic and
draw,
lose
but
round one. That is not ideal. So
yeah.
My personal opinion, again, you don't need to weigh in on this. I know there's certain things you don't weigh into. I think likely at least I think they'll probably move on from Purge. Whether or not they make a second change depends on if they can get the players they want. Because it's going to be a mess of teams making a roster change, I think.
Yeah, it's a potential roster change for these guys if they don't do well.
Yeah, I just think right now they had some winnable series they threw away before the tough part of the schedule, and now it's sort of it is what it is, and we'll see if they can get anything out of this event. But I think likely listen, 4 teams have to get top 12. Not everybody's got top 8 in it, so I think that's all the 12. I put a bracket link in there if you want to pull it up. We can just kind of get some final thoughts on the bracket. I think the way this bracket is shaped out, is first off, I think all the team that made winners. I think this is a product of the 7 game splits now. The teams that there weren't any teams that got, I think, mega screwed and getting stuck in losers due to like some shitty tiebreaker. I think Miami, FaZe, Toronto, New York, Seattle, OpTic, Miami, like they all played good enough to deserve to get winners. And the last 2, like ROKKR and LG, did enough in the beginning of the split to make it, and ROKKR got on this win streak to get in it. So I think it makes for a winners bracket that there are. Listen, I don't just expect that all the top teams just win their favorite series and this wins round 1. You know what I'm saying? First land is always upsets. Teams like ROKKR, especially, just kind of sitting there. You never know.
Yeah. I mean, just like we were discussing earlier, just got to come out hot at the end of the day. No matter how good or bad you look, it's still a very competitive league, and there's still a lot of good players even on the bottom 4 teams on paper, and you always have to make sure you're trying to improve and then obviously show up and execute and stuff. So it should be a good major. I'm excited.
I don't remember when they made this change. I think this might be the first year they did it. That winners, did they do this last year where winners finals wasn't the first match on Sunday? Or is that it? I don't remember they flipped that this year, or that they did that last year.
Sorry, the winners thing, they flipped it. Whatever, like the Sunday now, if you win your winners finals match, you're not just doing nothing all day. Like they changed it to make it a little bit more fair, which is nice.
So just to be clear, the Sundays, which is top 4, goes losers semis, winners finals, grand finals, which is what we had literally every year before the CDL started. And then once we got to this format, Cole, you're like.
What was weird about it too is like they also then like we complained about it because we were in that scenario multiple times, and like it was never like an excuse as much as like it just doesn't make any sense. And then like we said that, and like I could have sworn we got a response like, yeah, no, that actually makes sense. We're gonna change that, and they just never did. And then like finally this year they did, which is just how it should be. Like also I feel like the winners match being first makes no sense just for viewership reasons too. Like let the people like start gathering into the stream and stuff and build the hype and then have it. So I'm happy that like no matter what plays out, that if you play your losers match, then a winners match, then a losers match, then a winners match. Because winning winners finals last year was weird. Like having like 2 hours to just literally do nothing. It was so weird. So I'm glad they changed that format. That was
Yep. And then someone's asking in my chat, is grand final a best of 7? We had best of 9s for a while, but grand final is a best of 7 just like it was last year. So
yeah,
we don't do bracket resets. It is what it is. But
I still hate the fact that like the finals from winners, you just have no advantage. I still think that's so weird.
Other than vetoes, but that's like,
not an advantage. Like we've talked about it. Most of the time, the 2 teams in the finals can play every single map. To a degree, of course, use the LA Thieves like they weren't very good at a silo. That happens, but
the inverse happened. That happened to OpTic versus Toronto too.
Exactly, and I know that, but still, I just feel like two elite teams that make it to the finals. Usually, teams are on a hot streak. They're playing really good. Just having like no like true advantage to me is so crazy that you can only lose once. But I don't know, maybe that's the old school in me, just because I'm so used to the CWL where like being in winners like mattered. Like way more than it does now, but I also understand, I guess, like you want to have, actually, no, I don't. The whole like people won't understand the reset thing makes no sense to me. The reset or or being up 1-0. The argument of saying like, oh, like people won't understand why a team's up 1-0 for winners, to me is like the craziest argument ever. So I don't know.
It's an audience education problem. It means the league needs to do a better job educating people on the format, and then time will solve that.
Yeah,
I know that
I feel like teams from losers have said the same thing. They've literally said like, yo, like we deserve to be like down 1, but whatever.
I know they always say like, oh, you know, you get huge reduction if you have a, you know, the continuation part or the second best of 5 viewership and overall viewership goes down, like whatever. I get it, but it's also like I don't know. There's a balance you gotta find between like
the viewership is for
simple viewership and making the best fair format.
Yeah, I was gonna say, but the integrity of just like winning, like being in winners, like it's kind of silly to like use viewership as an argument against like, hey, like I know like you deserve a little bit more because like you fought for that and stayed in winners, but like the viewership's more important than you, and I get it is important, but it's kind of odd. But I still think the 1-0 thing just makes more sense. Like when we say it all the time, we were down 1-0 in champs in TDL when we played Dallas, and like that's how it should have been. You know, like, and it's weird because like you make a losers run and like you make it to the finals, and I'm sure every single team that's ever made the finals through losers has just been like, all right, well, it's a fair reset. We have a really good. It's like such a weird mindset to like. I feel like you should still feel like, damn, all right, we gotta like fucking turn up here. Like we have to at least win a map to get ourselves back into it. It's so odd, but I don't think that's ever gonna change, unfortunately. But it should.
I don't think it's changing anytime soon. And some of my chat, Shafee made a good point at this event on Sunday. I believe Sunday morning. I assume before losers semis, challengers will play their finals on main stage. So that's a big W out of Boston.
That is cool. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. I like that.
And it's a mixy. I know Asen's in my chat. And you can probably speak to it. Like challengers this year, at least going to this first event, I think it's pretty wide open. A lot of people got bounced from the league into challengers this year.
I saw Asen frying on some Twitter clips, dude.
Just won the last cup.
Yep.
First official cup was this weekend in EU and NNA. Some interesting results there, but I think Asen's team won that, and because of how they're doing the points, they like didn't gain that much of a seeding advantage going to this event because I guess at some point Cold War season, so you accrue pro points that they use in challenger seeding by being in the pro league. Every stage you're in pro league gets a certain amount of points. But by the end of the season, like the top AMs have like 800 like pro points, and they adjusted so much that like pros only get like 30K by the end of the year. But because this year we only had one cup before, and they're still taking points from last season, like Asen's team, which is mostly people that played in the pro league last year, they don't have enough points compared to people that were all in challengers last year and placing decent and are winning. So they only, I think, Asen, what seed do you have? Like the 9th seed or something? Like I don't know, something really crazy considering they've been the best team in challengers.
So but Asen's team also probably doesn't give a fuck. In the sense, like the mentality there is like we're gonna beat anyone in front of us. Like that's what you have to have anyway. So it does suck, but I don't think they care, or at least I would assume they don't.
Well, let's move on. We have some community questions. I got one in chat and a couple on Twitter, but if you guys have any, just drop in the chat and we might sub some of the Twitter ones out for you guys. Asen confirmed he's got the 9th seed and he said it doesn't matter. So the first one I got from Shafee, this actually in chat. This one's
no.
What do you mean no?
Just no.
You don't even know what the question is.
I'm seeing it. I'm reading it. You can go.
No, you. So he's making the point right now. It was asking, is control better than Hardpoint in this game, considering that? And I think the logic on his end when he's asking this, I don't agree with him, but I think it's an interesting take.
No, it is. Yeah,
is that Karachi is a fun map. I think high rise control can be a fun map. Evasion control is a snooze. And you look at the Hardpoint map pool right now, especially post patch, which I know y'all haven't played on the Pro League yet. Like some of these maps, like Evasion and Terminal, are just not it. I know there might be some tweaks to the map pool with maybe like Rio coming or whatever, but he was asking if control is better than Hardpoint in this game. I don't think just quite yet. I don't know if I agree with that.
It's definitely closer. Like all sarcasm aside, it's definitely closer. I still think even with like some of the weird spawns and like this game can be weird. I'll say this every podcast, just from like I guess being around for so long. I don't know what the fuck happened to the spawn systems ever. Like what happened to the logic of the spawn systems? It makes no sense on like why like you have 3 arrows right here, and there is like a whole entire other side of the map that this arrow should spawn on, and he just spawns behind you guys for no reason. Like I don't know why the devs just can't make a spawn system that's even like remotely decent anymore. I truly don't get it. It makes no sense, and I would love to just sit down and just watch it happen and just see if it's like actually truly that fucking hard to do. It makes no sense, but
it can't be that hard to do, bro.
But Hardpoint is better than Hardpoint. Still, at the end of the day, consistently speaking, you control the pace of the game. You stay ahead on rotation. Like you can break a lot of the hills. Some of them, like the Palace Hill is pretty brutal, but that did get changed. Like I still think like controlling map control and playing the game at a consistent level with teamwork in between there is just still better than control. But I do think control is better than what we've had in the last couple of years. I do. Like I do think it is.
Year.
But like I truly don't understand how like making a spawn system that makes even like 75% sense has become like rocket science to Call of Duty as of late. Like as of like the last couple of years. Like it's just you watch the spawns and you just see like, oh, like there's 3 players here. Like surely he spawns behind. Like even the P2 on Invasion, dude, when like everyone's spawning Palace on each other.
Yeah, parallels in Palace.
Like I
turn left and they're there.
I don't understand. Like how is there not a spawn like back blue or middle? Like it doesn't make any whatever. But
Chris, just wait until you play the new patch and you see.
I've already seen them all. I've seen them all. Trust me. I don't get like some of the spawns that happen. It makes no sense. But I do think Control is actually way better this year than people have made it out to be in the sense of like the snooze fest Control. It's been playing pretty well. It's had some entertaining stuff, but I do think Hardpoint's still like overall better. I think it can,
I agree.
I do think it should like I truly just I'm not gonna go on a rant, but I just don't understand, but I still think Hardpoint's better.
I'm convinced, bro. I'm convinced the spawn system shit is just like they're trying to make pubs better, but it comes at the expense of like making the spawns actually like readable. Well, I guess you can kind of read some of the splits, making them controllable in the way that we've seen in like very structured CODs. Like the most recent one that I felt like spawn system was, you probably like think Cold War's last one where we had right out of the box. That shit was like, okay, this is a classic spawn system in COD, kind of no quadrants. Like you can really set up and get people trapped, and like on the flip side, you know how you can get out and really manipulate.
Yeah, well, you just know like if I go over here and get a kill, I'm influencing him to spawn here. But like nowadays, like you go over here and you get a kill and you don't know where the hell that guy's about to be. So, like it is readable when pros play like thousands of hours a day. But M West in the chat, I'm not sure if you're arguing for or against it makes pubs worse, but I will say if you I'm assuming you're saying that like the spawn system nowadays make pubs even worse, which I hope is the case, because I don't think any pub player or casual player enjoys spawning up and just getting shot immediately by someone right to their left. I don't. So I truly don't understand how it's become so hard for COD to do it, but maybe it's harder than it seems. I don't make games, but I would really love to just have the transparency of like what goes on to like influence like what's going on. But we can move on to the next one.
Well, cool. Let's move on to the last question before we get out of here. I'm actually going to take one from the chat, which is from Many Men 085 in your chat, Chris. What are your thoughts on the poor viewership so far? I wouldn't say the viewership's been poor, but it's definitely down from last year. Here are my thoughts, and you let me know if you agree, Crush. One is I think that
we have to make this quick, by the way, but
I think one is that there was a lot early in the split about top 4 teams dominating other teams. So I think it's been I think people have been expecting less upsets and less variance than last year. I also think again being exclusive to YouTube is just the lack of being platform agnostic is probably a big drag on that.
Mm-hmm.
What do you agree?
Yeah, I mean the poor viewership so far. I don't think the viewership has been poor. I don't think it's been terrible. But I feel like it's been expected. I don't think we were expecting a record-breaking viewership this year because of the sole fact that I also think the marketing for this new Call of Duty sucked in general. Modern Warfare 3 is just an extension of Modern Warfare 2. I think Modern Warfare 3 and Warzone and everything they've done is so much better than what we had last year. But I think the general marketing of this game was really negatively received because people felt really disrespected on the way this game came out. And I don't think that helps either. But because even in Warzone, but I think they're doing a good job from the game's point to try and make it as good as they can. But I think it was expected to be poor, or worse, and that's just kind of how it goes. The money that YouTube probably paid and stuff might make up for it, and hopefully, like things keep getting better, but at the same time too, like Major 1 hasn't even started, and we've only played online league matches, and there hasn't been like too much crazy variance yet. I think as we get more into the season, it could like there's still hope for it to get like way better. But I think poor viewership is the wrong choice of words. I just think it's been more expected to be a little bit down. We're not doing terrible, but I didn't expect record-breaking years. And I also do think the marketing for this Call of Duty in general has like not helped, because a lot of people were really pissed off that this game was like an extension of MW2. But like realistically, it's just so much better than MW2 in every way. But I don't think a lot of people are going to take the leap of faith on that, because a lot of people don't want to spend $70 on a game that's like almost identical. Yeah, and I get that. Like the DLC thing, I understand that argument for a lot of people that don't want to spend that money. So I don't think that helped either, to be honest.
I agree. So we'll end it there. I appreciate y'all tuning in for this one, or for those watching on YouTube or on any audio platform. Make sure you check us out there. Chris and I will probably do a show Tuesday after the major, because you're obviously traveling on Monday. Your Tuesday or Wednesday, we'll run one and talk about the major, talk about some maybe roster changes to be announced by then, but some map pool tweaks. As always, let us know in the comments what you guys think. There's things we should improve, segments we should add. We're always open to any feedback there. And Chris, as always, it was a pleasure doing the show with you today.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for being here, Ben, and everyone watching. We appreciate you guys. Off to Boston we go, and we will see you guys when we come back. Later.
Peace.